Hi, I'm Jackie Brown, and welcome to It's Up to You.
As I continue my behind-the-scenes look into real estate, I'm going to take you back to one of my shows from 2014. You're going to meet Jay and Veronica Westbrook and hear their incredible story of how they went from being homeless to making over $1 million in 1 year. Stay tuned. Have a business, product, or service that needs more exposure? Tried various ways of marketing but still not getting the results you envisioned? Considered television but thought it was too expensive or just didn't know where to start? Maybe you tried television and still not getting the results you wanted. If you believe in your product or service or business and know that there are people out there trying to find you right here locally, and have a minimum marketing budget of $250 and can handle the influx of new business, we need to talk. I have a solution, and the solution is It's Up to You TV. For more information and to schedule a Get Acquainted call, email me today at itsuptoyoutv@gmail.com. Coming up.
In 1997, we were homeless, didn't have a place to live. We were basically homeless, and at that point in our lives, we were challenged to figure out what was next. And God spoke to me one day. He said, now that you don't have the home, sell everything else you have in the city you're living in and move.
Hi, and welcome to It's Up to You. I'm Jackie Brown, and today we have the Westbrooks with us, Mr. Jay Westbrook and Miss Veronica Westbrook. Our show today is amazing. Hold on to your seats. They're going to tell their story of how they've overcome and how God is blessing them. Jay, Veronica, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. Okay, who are the Westbrooks?
Who are the Westbrooks? Well, the Westbrooks have been wonderfully married for 30 years.
Wow. Yay!
And so we have a beautiful, beautiful family, 3 beautiful kids, 5 grandkids.
Oh my goodness.
And we're excited about that. But we're God-fearing, God-loving people. We just love God. We love doing what God has called us to do. And we just love God and love God's people.
Well, I had the opportunity to hear you speak a couple of weeks ago, and you were just amazing. Your story was just amazing. That's why I wanted to have you here so other people could know about the journey that you guys have been on and are continuing to be on. Can you tell me a little bit about your story and your struggles and your challenges?
Sure. In 1997, we were homeless, didn't have a place to live. We were basically homeless, and at that point in our lives, we were challenged to figure out what was next. And God spoke to me one day. He said, now that you don't have the home, sell everything else you have in the city you're living in and move. I was like, God, where are we going to go? And God said, just trust me. And so we moved about 15 miles north of where we live. And it's amazing the journey that God took us on from there. We went from being broke and homeless to $1 million net worth within 1 year. So, God is awesome, and
Yes,
I love Him so much. And we have to share that story because it's so many people need to hear that no matter what you've gone through in life, no matter how bad life is beating you up, you can get up from that. You can get up and you can start over, and you can just trust God. And God is a way maker. He'll bring you through. He will. You can count on Him every time.
Yes.
So we've been truly blessed, truly blessed.
But I'm glad that you guys do give God all the glory. But I also want to let you know that I recognize the obedience.
Yes.
I recognize that from what you spoke before is that God spoke to you. You didn't necessarily understand why He spoke what He spoke. You didn't know the outcome, but all you knew was that you had to do it. You had to be obedient.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to speak to is that your wife, through everything that you've gone through, she's been there.
Oh, yes.
And that is something that I think is just beautiful. I think that's a blessing because either one of you could have left, you know, but you felt the call to stay together and to know that the challenge was yours together to do, correct?
Yes.
Can you, Veronica, just tell me a little bit about some of the highs and lows that you had as far as being a wife of a God-fearing man?
Yes, I knew that I was his helpmeet. God told me to stick with him no matter what he went through. Just stick by him. And I obeyed God. And I've been there ever since.
Amen.
That's just beautiful. And Jay, can you tell me some of the hardest challenges, some of the things that you went through, you know, living in the back of a U-Haul building and trying to raise a family, then having a pregnant wife? Tell me from a man's perspective, because I always try to hear from a man's perspective because of my husband. I want to know what he's thinking. So tell me some of the hardest things that you had to overcome, I guess, as far as being a man.
Well, you know, one of the hardest things was feeling like a failure, a man with a family, knowing that it was my irresponsibility that had put us in that situation. And I felt real bad, And it was even greater challenge because at that time, my wife was being challenged by some family members and others, like, you know, why would you allow him to have you in that situation? I wouldn't do it, and I said, just stay with me, just stick with me. God's gonna get us through this. And we were. All we had for walls were, I had built a makeshift wall, and we had sheets for doors, and we had a toilet and a sink for our bathroom. We had a hot plate that we used to cook on, and that was all we had. And then God spoke to me one day and said, because you're trusting me, and he said, I want you to know something. If you give your wife the desires of her heart, I'll give you the desires of yours. And I didn't understand it at first, and God began to minister to me about what that meant. He said, you know, all your wife ever wanted was for you to love her. And I was like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. And so I was on a mission from that day forward. And as I began that quest of making sure that my wife was number one next to God, she was number one and to me. And everywhere I went, we went together. Everything I did, she did it with me. And then God spoke to me one day, he said, now I want you to trust me. You've tried it your way all these years. You've been an entrepreneur, you've done these things, but you failed. Now trust me. And God said, if you trust me, I'll make you a millionaire. I was like, wow, I'm broke, I'm homeless, I don't have anything. God, that's a big challenge. And so then I was in church one Sunday. I did the announcements at church. And I heard the Holy Spirit speak to me and say what I told you. And I looked out there, I was like, oh no. Oh no, I'm
not to that crowd,
about
right?
to do that. Because they're gonna think I smoked too much crack when I was out there. So I said, no, God. And I kept feeling this urge to do it. And I said, okay. And I said, I've got something I've got to say. It's burning in me. God told me to say it. God told me that if I just trust him, he's going to
not
make
Jay.
me a millionaire. And the whole room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. I knew they was thinking, he's crazy. But immediately after that, God started the wheels are rolling. We were still homeless, still really didn't have anything, but it's amazing that God will connect the dots. God will bring people in your life at those appointed seasons, at those appointed times, and when God brings them, they're there.
Absolutely.
And when they're on assignment, God has already commanded them to do for you, and you don't even know it.
Favor's already there.
It's already there.
Yeah.
And so we had an experience where I met a gentleman. I won't call his name, but I had an experience where I met a gentleman who was a real estate developer, and he came up to me one day. He said, "Who told you to park on my lot?" I was hustling clothes. I was trying to get some money. He said, "I don't want you parking here." I said, "Sir, I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't mean any harm." And he said at that moment, he told me he was wanting to curse me out. He said, but something in him told him not to do it. He said he couldn't do it. And so I realized that, he had that real estate company. So at the same time, I asked him, I said, sir, I'm really trying to get back on my feet. My family's first. And I said, I'm really trying to do what I can to get back on my feet. I said, I know you own that real estate company. Do you have any work? I said, I'm a carpenter by trade. I said, do you have any work that you can give me? I'll do anything. And he told me to come by his office, and he gave me some work. And the relationship was formed. I did a remodel for him. He loved it, so he came to me and said, you did a wonderful job. He said, how would you like to build some houses for me?
My goodness.
I said, what? I said, I would love to build some houses for you. And so God opened the door. Next thing I'm building houses for him, being faithful over that which belongs to another. Every time he called, I went. I made sure that I served him as unto the Lord.
Yes,
And
yes.
God began to bless that relationship. God gave us favor with this gentleman. He came out to me one day. He said, Jay, he says, something unique about you and your family, you and your wife. He said, you are some hardworking people, and I just want to help you. I said, thank you, thank you. And he said, at this point in time, we had started constructing us a little home. He came out on the job. I was putting the roof on, and I was doing a little bit at the time. He drove up. He said, Jay, how much money do you need to finish your home? And I think I told him around $40,000. He told me to come by his office. And I went by his office, and sure enough, he made it available. It's like, wow, God, you do stuff like that? So I'm like, man, this is amazing. So long story short, we were building his houses as fast as we were building, they were being sold. And I was loving the relationship. Got the house finished right before my baby was born, my last daughter was born. And we moved in, and then the amazing thing happened. We moved in August. The baby was born in October. God told me to sell it in January.
What? Oh my
I was
goodness.
like, God, you gotta be kidding.
Okay, wait a minute. Veronica, what were you thinking?
I was thinking at first, okay, are you out of your mind?
But you heard and you obeyed.
I heard and I obeyed, and it just spun into something else. You know, we obeyed God. We netted a nice profit. Never had that much money at one time in all of our life. So we took that money and began to sow it back in the ground in investments and in real estate. And the same gentleman came to me again. I was building the house for him. He said, Jay, what are your goals? I said, I really want to build houses, and I want to do what you're doing. And I said, that's my goal one day. He said, that's a good goal to have. I said, one day I'm going to do that. He said, what about now?
Wow.
He said, come on, go with me. He took me, I got in the truck with him. We drove to the bank, went in and met the president of the bank. He introduced me to the president of the bank. He said, this young man is a hard-working young man. He has a family. He's doing a great job for me, and I just want to help him. He said, will you lend him the money to build his first spec home? I said, oh my God. So now I'm nervous. I'm standing here nervous. I'm like, nothing like this ever happened.
Has ever happened.
I'm like, God, this has got to be a miracle. And so I'm afraid, because, you know, I've already got bad credit, bankruptcies galore.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there. The gentleman goes in the back, gets the paperwork, comes back out, asks me to sign. And I signed. And he said, well, you can get started. I was like, oh my God. And I went out, I said, God, you really do stuff like this?
He really does.
And it was amazing, because I had never experienced anything like this. Was a stranger. This gentleman didn't know me from Adam.
But that lets you know, when you're walking in the favor of God, when
Yes.
you're in His will, those things are already available to us.
Absolutely.
You know? And He's there to bless us. One thing I want to ask you too, you know, so when you went back to that church,
Yes.
after you made that $1 million, tell me about that experience.
Well, that was quite an experience.
Okay.
I didn't want to gloat in it. Didn't want to, I just wanted God to get the glory.
Yes.
So I remember when it happened. I remember I was sitting down at the table at the house. I was going through doing our balance sheets and doing and it dawned on me, because I've been just gobbling up real estate and doing it as it going.
You were just working.
Yeah. Well, I looked at the bottom of the balance sheet, and I looked at the profit and loss. I said, oh my God. I jumped up, I ran, and I said, baby, he's done it. He's done it. He's done it. God is good.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I said, oh my God. So that next Sunday, I couldn't wait to get to church. And I stood up and I said, you know what? God is awesome. He's good. I said, God is faithful. He keeps his word. I said, God has kept his word. I said, God told me he was going to make me a millionaire, and he's done just that. How awesome is God? Amen.
That's pure awesome. That's just awesome.
Yes.
Well, tell me very quickly about, you have another passion.
Yes.
It's comedy. Tell me about that.
Oh, I love comedy. I was born with the gift to make people laugh. I knew God gave it to me. I started in the late 80s, 1980s. I would imitate Jerry Clowers. Shoot this thing. I would imitate Jerry Clowers, and people would want me to come to parties and Christmas parties. So that's how I got started. And I said, well, wait a minute, let me try to create some jokes. And so I did. And in 1995 is when I really launched who I became J-Boy, which was my comic name. traveled all over the Southeast doing comedy, opened for some great names. The largest crowd I ever opened for was 6,000 people, and I was like, oh my God, God, you're awesome. And so what I've learned to do, and after I got to the point where God called me into the ministry, I just asked God, okay, how am I gonna put the comedy into pastoring? And so I just use it in my ministry, I use it in my public speaking, and I use it because it is a gift that God gave me, and I want to give God everything He gave. I want to give it back to Him.
There you go.